So next I'm going to talk about fiber. Fiber is usually in the same sentence as uncompressed HD and 2K uncompressed. Just because it's super duper fast and they come in enclosures that allow 16 drives, 12 drives, sometimes even 24 drives in a single enclosure. That's kind of what fiber does for you. It's sheer speed. The other thing about fiber is it can be shared, and this is probably the most important thing to think about if you're weighing whether you need fiber or you need a SATA enclosure. Now, when we're talking price, we're talking, with SATA, you can get 3 terabytes of storage for, in the 1900 range, which is really good. And you'll be able to do HD and everything will be great. With fiber, if you want something like 6 terabytes, you're going to pay $4,500 to $5,000 because what you're paying for is the technology on that enclosure, which is much more sophisticated than anything on SATA or anything on FireWire. You have
6 terabyte. You said it's 6 terabyte. You said 2,000 for 3 terabyte.
Yeah, you'll pay about probably for 6 terabytes you'll probably be around the $4,000 range for SATA. And again, fiber with fiber, for example, if you need 10 terabytes of fiber, look at paying close to $10,000. It's really close to $1,000 per terabyte with fiber. But again, what you're paying for is the technology on the enclosures. They're very sophisticated. They're very smart. They have battery cache inside the enclosures, and all that stuff's important. And I'll talk about that later with rate levels. The other thing about fiber-based solutions is they use enterprise class drives most of the time, and those obviously have a much lower failure rate than the stuff you normally just buy off the shelf. And that's important. It's boring, but it's important. Especially if you're doing, 2K or you have 30, 40 hours of footage on your drives. Again, that footage is important. How much would you lose if that footage went away and you had to reshoot? So you have to think about all these things as well. But again, the biggest thing about fiber is the fact that it's fast and it can be shared. So, for example, let's say today you're starting, you're starting an independent film, and it's, you're going to have 1 edit station, but you have a feeling it can grow to 2 if the load demands it later on. Fiber can be shared via a SAN. How many people here have heard of XSAN from Apple? Okay, so basically all that is multiple machines being able to share one fiber box. So you have 3 or 4 edit stations, and they all want to connect to one piece of storage and share it at the same time, be able to read and write from it at the same time. That's called a SAN. You can't do that with SATA. You can't do that with FireWire. You can only do that with the fiber solution at high speeds. So it doesn't mean that you're going to do that right away, but if you have a budget, let's say your budget is $5,000 for storage, and you need more than 4 terabytes. What I would tell people is ask yourself if later on you're going to need to share this storage, because fiber is extremely flexible, which means you can buy it today and get the high speeds. You'll pay a little bit more for it over SATA, but later, 2-3 years down the line, you can take that same fiber box and share it. And it's multi-purpose. So you buy a fiber switch and you keep plugging more fiber boxes into it, and you can share all that storage. So it's really good, and a lot of people do it. Some of the bad things about fiber, obviously, is it's really expensive compared to FireWire drives. But when you're going to the next level and you're doing multiple films, that's usually when people jump into fiber. The other thing is it's big, it's heavy, it's honky, it's like stationary, it's noisy, you put it in a rack. It's something the size of these decks over here. They're huge. It's not something you're obviously going to grab and take on set and run with. So, they're very, yes.
Can you have a fiber connection to a laptop, to a MacBook Pro?
You cannot, because there's no way to get that kind of speed. That's the problem. The fastest bus you have on a laptop is the Express 34 slot, and that's not very fast. It's enough to do one stream of 8-bit uncompressed HD, and that's it. The popular rate levels are 0 and 1. For you guys, I'm going to say never touch rate 0, period, because you'll be editing with tapeless workflows, and that's just a no-no. RAID 1 is okay. That picture is of the CalDigit VR. That is something you probably want to get when you're on set, because you'd have something RAID 1 protected to transfer your footage to from the CF cards. The other popular RAID levels when you get to the higher end is RAID 5, which most fiber boxes have, and RAID 6. The short definition of RAID 5 and RAID 6 is RAID 5 means you can lose a drive at any time and replace it without losing data. RAID 6 is the same thing, but you can lose 2 drives at any time without losing the data as long as you replace them before another one goes. If you don't replace it before another one goes, you're in big trouble. So that's the biggest difference between RAID 5 and RAID 6. And the most important thing is backup, and there's not a whole lot that I need to say about this other than if you're shooting tapeless, you have to have a backup strategy. It's not even negotiable because you have no tapes to put on the shelf. So what you should tell yourself is you should always have something to put up on the shelf. And if you don't have that, you're going to be in a world of hurt. So the short story is this. These are the 3 ways you can back up. On the left is hard drives. That's doing it on the cheap. I don't recommend it, but if that's all your budget allows, it's better than nothing. Second is Blu-ray disc. A lot of people don't know you can back up stuff to Blu-ray disc, but when you compare it to LTO tape, which is on the right, LTO is much faster, and once you incur the cost of the drive, which is about $2,500 for an LTO3 drive, you can see 400 gigabyte tape is only $45, and you can transfer in 1 hour. You can transfer 288 gigabytes of data because it moves at about 80 megabytes a second or so. Which means, layman's terms, is you can put 2 hours of 4K red footage, and you can transfer that in 1 hour. Versus Blu-ray, you can see it takes 1 hour just to burn a 50 gigabyte disc, which is not even an hour of red footage. So. Blu-ray, it seems cheaper because the burners are so inexpensive, but the time it takes to burn the disc and the amount you're going to pay for the media because it's still expensive, you might as well just buy an LTO setup.
What kind of connection does the LTO use?
LTOs, usually you can choose between SCSI, SAS, or fiber. So you do need an interface card usually when you buy an LTO tape drive. So the initial cost of ownership is higher, but you can just turn and burn so many tapes. The other thing you can do is you can look for companies that provide that service. A lot of companies, if you bring your hard drives to them, they'll put them on LTO tape for you for a fee.